Hi everyone, I'm Cara-Lee of Wildcraft Kitchen and welcome back to the Phillips Cabin here at the Foxfire Museum and Heritage Center. Today we're going to be exploring the art and science of fermentation and talking about ways for you to ferment foods safely at home. Traditional cultures have been fermenting foods for generations. Today we're going to be making a fermented food called sauerkraut. The name sauerkraut comes from the German word sour cabbage. Almost every culture has its own version of sauerkraut. Many cultures use cabbage for this preparation, but you can use just about any hardy green and even wild greens that you can forage on your own property. So why make sauerkraut or ferment foods at all? Our ancestors fermented foods to preserve them for health benefits and also for flavor. When we culture or preserve foods in this way, we're capturing microbes from our environment. And this actually tells a story about a different place and a different time, each time that we make these ferments. Here in Appalachia and in many cultures around the world, cabbage was traditionally used to make kraut. This is a really hardy green vegetable. It grows well in cooler temperatures, and now is a great time to actually plant cabbage in your garden to harvest in the fall. The process of lactofermentation removes toxins from our food, makes nutrients more bioavailable, prevents spoilage, and additionally creates beneficial microorganisms that can help to balance our gut flora. Lactic acid enhances preservation, nutrient enrichment, and digestive enzymes. Fermented foods promote health by boosting immunity, increasing B vitamins, omega-3 fatty acids, and enzymes which help to fight off infection. The final product of our lacto-fermented cabbage, our sauerkraut, is very rich in vitamin C, which we know helps to boost our immunity. Also, it's been documented that one of the first cases in which no scurvy was reported on a trip around the world with Captain James Cook was thanks to barrels of sauerkraut on his boat. But we want to show you how you can make sauerkraut at home, simply and easily with ingredients that are available to you in your home pantry. So the three ingredients that you need to make your own sauerkraut at home are cabbage, good quality salt, and thyme, T-I-M-E. Here in Appalachia though, historically sometimes sauerkraut was made with just a little bit of vinegar added to it as well. And this would just help to inoculate the ferment and give it a bit of a head start. Unlike chow chow, however, sauerkraut is a completely naturally fermented product, whereas chow chow is a pickled product. So let's get to it and start chopping up our cabbage. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut off a little bit of this bottom stem here of our cabbage to even it out and allow it to sit safe and flat on the board. I'm then going to take my fingers and do something called an arch grip and kind of balance my cabbage, grasp it with my hands, and do an initial cut down the middle of the cabbage. Now we can put our cabbage again on a flat surface so it's nice and safe, and cut it again. So here we are quartering our cabbage into more manageable sized pieces for us to break down. The core of the cabbage is very delicious, but since it's so much denser than the leafy greens, we're going to remove that as it'll ferment at a different rate to the leafy part of the cabbage. So I'm just going to go in with my knife at an angle, and this is the same way I would core an apple, and remove this sweet, delicious core that you can chop up and sprinkle with a little salt and have as a snack. Now that we've quartered and cored our cabbage, I'm going to go ahead and start slicing it thinly. So we've finally shredded up all of our cabbage. You can do this with a knife, you can do this with a mandolin, you can do it with a food processor, whatever you have access to and that is easy for you. And now we're just going to salt our cabbage. So for about a medium-sized head of cabbage, I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons of good quality salt. This is not table salt. This is not iodized salt. This is like a good quality sea salt. You can use pink Himalayan salt. Okay, so now we've salted our cabbage and we're going to let it sit for about 15-20 minutes until it starts to sweat and you will see water coming out of the cabbage. So we've left our cabbage to sit with our 2 tablespoons of salt over it. This method of lactic fermentation is called dry brining, but you can also prepare a brine ahead of time and use that to ferment vegetables with. We dry brine leafy greens because salt pulls water out of those greens. But for firmer veggies like carrots, those green beans or beets, we may want to make a wet brine ahead of time. To do that, all you would do is add 1 to 2 tablespoons of your good quality salt to some water per quart mason jar. So our cabbage has been sitting for about 15 minutes, and if you look into your bowl, you'll see it's starting to sweat and pull water out of the shredded cabbage. And at this point, you're going to go in with your hands and start to massage it. By doing this, you're assisting in releasing that water from the cabbage. And this process takes a little bit of time and a little bit of muscle, so dig in and enjoy and have fun with it. This is a great thing to get the kids involved in as well. Today we're making a very simple kraut with just cabbage and salt, but if you wanted to, you could definitely doctor this up. So now I'm going to go ahead and start packing handfuls of cabbage that's been salted and the juice is coming out of it nicely into our mason jar. And I'm just doing it 1 handful at a time. With each handful, I then go in and push down. So I pack all the layers in nice and tight. At the same time, I'm making sure that with every layer, I'm seeing some of that brine rise up above the cabbage. And so you'll just continue doing this until your mason jar is almost full, leaving about 1 inch headspace. Alright, I've gone ahead and packed my jar with my kraut. My brine has risen above my kraut. This is very important because lactic fermentation is an anaerobic process. They say everything is fine under the brine. So make sure you keep your kraut underneath your brine. And one way we do that, you may have noticed I've reserved some large cabbage leaves off to the side here, is by tearing off a piece about this size that's going to fit inside your mason jar and act as a cap for our sauerkraut. So we're going to use this flat square piece of cabbage and push it so it's also under the brine, protecting all the good shredded kraut underneath. If this piece were to then pop up over the brine and slightly oxidize, we could simply remove it and everything underneath would still be fine. To finish off, we're going to cap our jar with our mason jar lid. And now you're going to let your sauerkraut naturally ferment on your counter at home in a place that's away from direct sunlight. As your jar sits on the counter, you may notice some bubbles being produced in the jar. This is a byproduct of fermentation, carbon dioxide. Because these bubbles have nowhere to go, we have to help release them. And so every few days, if you press on your lid and notice that it's tight, you'll want to just release the band and you may hear some air, some pressure release from the jar. And we call this burping our sauerkraut. This is very important because pressure can build up in your jar and we don't want any accidents or explosions in the kitchen when it comes to sauerkraut. With our 1 head of cabbage, we've probably made about 2 quart jars of kraut. This kraut can ferment for as little as 3 to 5 days, for up to 2 weeks. That's really up to your personal preference. What we suggest doing for kraut beginners is after 3 days, give it a taste. If it's still very salty, that may indicate that it needs a little bit more time to ferment. If you like a crunchy, salty kraut, you may like it ready in 3 to 5 days. If you prefer a more sour or odoriferous kraut, you can let it ferment for several weeks. Once it's fermented to your preference, you then want to put your sauerkraut into cold storage in the refrigerator. Cold storage helps to slow the fermentation process down. Know that fermentation is a completely unpredictable process. We don't always know the outcomes. As we mentioned earlier, every microbe, every culture that is captured in a ferment tells a different story and can produce a different flavor. So you may actually never produce the same ferment twice. This is a wonderful thing about the art of fermentation. When it's time to enjoy your sauerkraut, we recommend trying it with sausage. You can put it on a Reuben sandwich. You can eat it with your eggs in the morning with your breakfast for a good healthy start to the day. If this is the first time that you're trying probiotic-rich foods at home, we encourage you to start slow. A tablespoon or 2 a day can really help your body acclimate to foods like this. As you can see, sauerkraut is simple and easy for you to make at home. But if you're not ready to make it yourself, why not consider supporting one of our local small businesses, New Moon Kettle, who produce sauerkraut right here in the mountains, made with juniper and caraway seed, and their products are available on the Yonder online farmers market. We hope you enjoyed this introductory video and look forward to hearing about your results. Please feel free to share with us on social media and hashtag foxfire.org. Also, stay tuned to our blog for recipes and more resources on how you can lacto-ferment at home safely. www.foxfire.org/journal. Thanks again, stay safe and be well.